What was the best you have no power here moment you have ever seen? Part 3. An old dude asked for my manager as soon as I came out of the back room. While I worked in the men's shoe department at Macy's. I think he was mad he was waiting for help for a while. We were closing so people were cleaning up and there were only 3 employees for the whole floor. Went ahead and called my manager and let him know she was on her way. He said I want to talk to the man in charge. Well, to his dismay, every single manager in our store was a woman, up to even the store manager. He just left. Felt awesome. My manager eventually showed up and we laughed about it. Asterisk edited for clarity. I grew up with my parents having screaming arguments over every little thing. They do love each other, over 50 years of marriage so far testifies to that, and it always upset me. A couple of days ago, they popped into my house to visit for a coffee on their way to stay with friends a few miles away. Within minutes, they were yelling at each other. I took great pleasure in telling them that I would not stand for such behavior in my house, and if they didn't lower their voices, they could stand outside until they learned some manners. The meek apologies tasted so sweet. As did the coffee. I grew up fairly poor. In some of my HS classes there was a very rich girl who liked to lord power over people. She had the teachers convinced she was a saint. Though. One day she and I got into an argument and we were sent to the vice principal's office. I thought I was doomed. Lo and behold. The VP wasn't there that day and the art teacher was filling in for this sort of thing. We told him what happened and I mentioned that she acted like she was better than everyone else because she has nice clothing and money. She yelled that I was a liar and the art teacher said, "You do act like you own the place." She was shocked and shut the hell up. Knowing someone finally believed me was just blissful. My homeroom teacher in 10th grade, Mrs. Isaac, was awful. Among other things, she had a curious habit of making cheerful little comments to people about how they're going to hell, will die alone in the street, and other lovely things of this nature. She somehow also got management backing to do pretty much whatever she wanted, giving punishments, changing schedules without asking anyone, and so on. She had this going for several months. Until she made one big mistake. According to what I heard. At least. She chirped to the resident math teacher that married women who do not cover their hair go to hell. Said math teacher. Of course. Was a married woman who did not cover her hair. And did not appreciate this comment. About a week later, Mrs. Isaac decided she is pulling her class from all other classes for a Bible prep marathon. Now, to be fair, there was a big exam coming. But you could say that about most of the other classes, too. She sent a random 7th grader to our English classroom to tell the teacher that we're being called for a prep marathon. Who is calling? MRS. Isaac. Oh. In that case, it's a no. We were utterly shocked. And amused. Because that's not a thing teachers did. She made a few other attempts. But it seems all of the teachers decided they had enough. And flat out refused to send us to her little prep marathon. The best part came on Thursday the same week. She sent in yet another 7th grader to call us. Except this time, it was math class. Who's calling them? MRS. Isaac. So it doesn't matter. But Mrs. Isaac said dash. I know. I don't care. Worked in a cell phone store. Both selling devices and service contracts in the UK. Some kid, 19-ish maybe, came in with a much shorter man who I later learned was his dad. For whatever reason, I forget what now, he wanted to cancel out of a contract he was partway through. Now I could already tell from the way the kid explained it in exasperated terms that he knew he couldn't cancel out of it. But his dad wasn't taking his word for it and had dragged him in to try and sort it out for him. The contracts clearly state you can't cancel prematurely without paying off the rest of your dues. Which I explained. And his father just went full boomer rage mode on me. Spitting. Frothing. Hurling vitriol. This guy clearly thought this was how you got things done. I stared him down. Waited for him to finish. And repeated the contractual terms as stated. He hit me back with, "I'll report you for violating the Sale of Goods Act." Sucks to be him because I had that bitch memorized. I made a point of it. In fact, After the first few customers in my early days tried to bring it up to get their own way, some chode on the internet had made posts about how you could sling the term around and usually scare retailers into doing what you want because they don't know it either, so it happened a lot even when there was absolutely no call for it. I just looked at him and said sure. Go ahead. You can even use our phone. And pointed at the store phone right next to him. I knew he didn't have a leg to stand on and any trade commissioner listening to his claim would laugh him off the line. He clearly had absolutely no idea how to proceed. After a moment of blank staring he just turned and stormed out with his son rolling his eyes so far back into his head he could probably see his own brain in embarrassment at his dad's tantrum. In high school, one of the teachers who I didn't get along with was being condescending to me in the hall outside of the classroom. I had gone to the principal the day before to complain about the teacher's attitude towards myself and two girls that were in the same class. Micromanaging us. Singling us out and making comments about us to the other students, example, study well. Lest you end up looking like r/commander_prism. And nobody wants to look like him. For the record, I got good grades. But teacher would always try to dock points for the smallest mistakes. Missing a period. Can't read your chicken scratch, I contemplated murder at that one. Paragraphs too big or too small. Etc. So I complained about it to the principal. Who then had a few extra hands look over my assignments, and the assignments of the two girls, and concluded that the teacher was being a general nuisance. Teacher got a warning. But I was pulled out into the hall so she could talk down to me for snitching. Lo and behold. Principal turns the corner. Sees us. And starts speed marching over like Mr. X from Resident Evil 2. Explain yourself. I was just reprimanding him for disrupting the class. The fuck you were. My office. Now. You. Go back in and sit down. I'll send another teacher down to watch the class. We got a sub for the rest of the week. And then they brought in a teacher from the opposite wing to teach. When my shitty father kicked me out of the house and then demanded he have access to my bank to control my financial situation, and I got to tell him you have no control over me anymore. You set me free when you kicked me out and now you can't do shit. New director. Decides admin should hold a meeting at noon MF in the nurses' lunchroom and bar them from entering during that time. Defines it in a group text as a quick win. My response, please help me to understand how this is beneficial to remove the nurses from their lunchroom during lunch break. No response. His peers and hire UPS in on the text. He is then moved to the quality department. Screwed up in so many levels. New CEO came to our department on the first day of his work. He didn't have a pass card yet and a lower level employee told him that he can't enter without pass card. Our CEO got upset and ordered a worker to let him in. But the worker insisted, show me the pass card. Or you're not entering. And #X200B. Few days later this worker got a bonus. Co-worker had a bit of a superiority complex. Kept telling me to do his odd jobs so he could only do tasks he wanted. Finally one day I tell him, I've got it covered. Please go do your job, and he started to go on about how he's been here longer than I have. So I told him that being hired 2 weeks before me holds no merit for superiority. I'm usually pretty reserved and have a hard time talking to actual superiors. But that felt good. I worked at a prison for 10 years. A lot of the captains were notorious for giving in to newer employees' demands for training usually reserved for senior officers. Or at the very least, easier jobs away from inmates. One night I was talking with one of the captains in his office and a new officer came in. He'd been there about 3 months or so. He started asking the captain for some particular training. The captain kept telling him no because there were senior officers ahead of him. Naturally, this 20-something-year-old kid started whining about so-and-so getting trained and he wasn't, and they felt like they have proven their worth. The captain got up and started walking circles around the officer as if he was looking for something. Checked his shirt collar, pockets, and even made him give him his wallet. And he looked through it. He finally sat down and looked at his own collar and touched his captain's pin and said, "Holy shit. You almost had me convinced that I wasn't the decision maker. Get the fuck out of my office." He was my favorite supervisor of all time. Still is. That would be a customer we had named Nick. I'll leave his last name out to protect the stupid. He would email us and always CC editor at summonationalnewspaper.com, and most of his emails were things like nothing fucking works. None of the national newspapers responded. I imagine some underling just rolled his eyes and deleted them. Finally he said, "Fix this in 5 minutes or I cancel." My manager says, "Let me see that email." He responded, "Thank you. I cancelled your account. We don't want customers like you anyway. If you want to contact the media, that's your call. I'll happily provide the months of threatening emails you sent to my staff." He gave us months of headaches over a PS45/quarter account. We definitely didn't need him. I worked at a movie theater and some customers were adamant that a staff member had stolen their wallet after they dropped it. Turns out that these people just couldn't see and found the wallet once they actually looked for it. They got irate with literally everyone. From the mall security to the managers to the staff. Mall security finally said, "Get the fuck out," and the customers went, "You can't say that. This isn't your theater. We're customers." Mall security guy promptly said, "This is my mall. And I can do whatever the fuck I want." The first time I got to say my house. My rules to my dad after a lifetime of him saying it to me. It felt good. Thanks for watching.